Well, I lost my longtime best friend of almost 12 years this week. And while I am mourning the loss of Russell, my wonderful, wonderful black lab, I just wanted to do a little bit of a moment of silence for everyone who might be grieving a recent lost pet or even one from the past. They are amazing and we don't deserve them. And we are so lucky to have all the time with our pets that we do get. So, everyone out there that has a fur baby of yours that you love, please give them an extra hug for me today. It is a sad day on the It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom podcast, but Russell will live on forever.
Welcome in to It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. I'm Austin. Find me on X. I can't do it. At Real Bird Lawyer. I'm here as always with my co-host Taylor at Taylor_Wit. I know it's been a tough week, buddy, but it is good to talk to you about our Chiefs.
There is, there's not many things that can bring you out of a funk like that, but I do think talking about Chiefs is one of them. They are extremely positive and uplifting for us right now. So let's talk Chiefs football.
Before we talk about that, let's talk about fantasy football really quick. We'll plug our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, for all your best ball needs. If you have the itch to draft, and I've just been itching all over, itching like a hound to get me some drafts in lately. Check out Underdog. Use our promo code Sunny, SUNNY, match a deposit up to your first $100. You know the drill. We are going to be doing our Listener League drafts here soon. You are doing all the legwork to get those finalized because you are a saint and a hero. And everyone should appreciate you and all the work that you do, even though it is insane and no other person would do it. It's a thankless task, but we thank you for it. We are doing a draft right now with our good buddy in front of the show, Dan Harms. And that's progressing. It's a slow draft, which we have vowed never to do in any leagues that we run, even though the concept is a good concept because, oh my God,
if there's a 4-hour clock, about 75% of all picks in a slow draft are going to take the entire clock. It's mad. And we do vow every time that we do a slow draft, never again. And then yet we find ourselves pulled into slow drafts every now and then.
Just when I think I'm out.
Exactly right. But, it's fantasy and we're addicted and we love it. And we cannot wait to play fantasy football with you, the 27 listeners across our 3 leagues that have joined us. Caca to all of you. Going to be a lot of fun. I'm sure throughout the year, like you mentioned last week, we're going to be talking about some of the, hilarious hijinks that show up in the redraft league, the dynasty league, and the cutthroat league. What are we doing?
I don't know, but it's going to be amazing. For those of you that did not get to participate, keep your hopes up, keep your irons in the fire. You certainly will have the opportunity to cycle into one of our leagues next year. It's going to be a ton of fun. We got a great show for you guys, but before I get into that, I got to plug our special episode for this week. I received an advanced copy of Rustin Dodd and Mark Dent's new book, Kingdom Quarterback. It is about Patrick Mahomes, my favorite person in the world. It is about Kansas City, my favorite place in the world. It's sort of a 50-50 book about both of those things. So if you're like me and Taylor and you grew up in Kansas City and you love Kansas City and you love Patrick Mahomes, well, buddy, have I got a book for you. Kingdom Quarterback, Mark Dent, Rustin Dodd. It is out August 22nd. You can find it anywhere. And we just recorded an interview with Rustin about the book. We're going to release that as a separate episode. So please do check that out and go pre-order the book. It is great. There is also some news about a couple of little launch events that Rustin will be doing. So if you are in the area, certainly go check that out. This show, we've got news. That's going to include camp news. And then we got the Ask Boss from the past. And, that's the episode this week. So, we got your regular scheduled programming and we've got a whole hour-long interview with Rustin. It's going to be great. Let's get into the news. So let's start with injury news. And regrettably, we do have some injury news this week. it's sort of a sobering reminder that, this is a violent game. Bad things can happen. And unfortunately, Nazi Johnson last week tore his ACL. He's going to be out for the year. A huge bummer for a guy who was showing out. I mean, he was taking first team reps. He was in there ahead of, Jalen Watson and some of the other guys that were getting snaps last year. And for a seventh round pick, I mean, this was Nazi's chance to, potentially elevate his role in the team. He had a big role carved out for himself on special teams already. This was his chance to potentially crack the starting lineup and get some really meaningful snaps. And unfortunately, he will not get the opportunity to do that this year. He will be out rehabbing that knee injury. Real bummer.
Yeah, it reminds me of two things. Number one, the first episode of the franchise, the brilliant show that the Chiefs put together, they highlighted the Fab Five of the DBs from the past draft that all had an impact in last year's Super Bowl win, including Nazi Johnson. And it was, obviously those five guys were all tight with each other. Of course, Trent McDuffie, Brian Cook, Joshua Williams, and Jalen Watson were the other four. And I'm sure they're all, not only taking his injury to heart, but going to go out there and bust their ass for him and play hard to be what is essentially a man down at this stage in the game. And that's too bad. But it also I was thinking about timing of injuries to young players, big injuries, ACLs and out for the years and stuff. And you've got either, it happens week one in the regular season and you missed the whole year, but you prepped the whole off season and the whole training camp and all that for your role. And the team builds your kind of role into the game plan. You also have end of the year-long injuries, which even though you're going to miss the whole next year, it from, like week 17 or whatever in the previous year. And then you kind of have the middle ground where Nazi was, where he finished his rookie year up. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl. The whole offseason, I'm sure he was chomping at the bit to get back to work. And I'm sure he was excited to go, take a step forward and help his guys out. And then training camp just starts and he's out for the year. And it just kind of, those three perspectives are interesting to think about, like what the emotions are like going through the players up until the injuries and what they're thinking about when they can get back. And I just hope that Nazi it keeps his head up, makes a full recovery, and can go out there in camp next year. And as a year 3 player with, having learned the system more and all that stuff, because you can do a lot of mental reps and mental studying even when you're not out there. And I just hope that he prepares himself right, because he was a guy that was really easy to root for as a 7th round pick.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point, like as the timing of injuries go, this isn't the worst timing, because at least he did get the offseason program in. It would have been great if he had gotten, more reps in camp, but he should be completely 100% healed in time for camp next year. And it sucks that it's that long of a timetable. But, and we've seen this with, Chiefs players in the recent past. I mean, Juan Thornhill, his rookie year, got injured on the last regular season game, and he was not the same player the next season. He was able to come back and he was able to play, but he wasn't fully recovered. And to be honest, it took him a couple of seasons to get back to the place where he was. This, at least, there's no pressure. You're going to miss this regular season and this postseason, but you can really just focus on the rehab, getting healthy for next year's offseason program and next year's training camp. It's a bummer, but as far as the timing of injuries go, it could be worse. And at this point in camp, there's still plenty of, other bodies out there. They can bring in another veteran if they need somebody to fill in that spot. They haven't done that in the DB room yet, which does suggest some confidence in the guys that they have. The remaining Fab 4 of the Fab 5, along with the other players that they have, with Jarius Sneed and the rest of the secondary. But on a positive note, injury news, Isaiah Pacheco, who, again, for a hot minute, was rumored to be missing the first 6 weeks of the season. He is expected to be cleared for contact by August 20th. He will be all systems go for week 1, and that is great to see.
Yeah, it is. He's always all systems go, even when he's hurt. He is just a all systems go dude. And I do think that he's an important part of the future and the plans for the Chiefs. And even if he's not, another seventh round pick, he's found money. He's a guy that the Chiefs absolutely, cashed in a lottery ticket with, and you want to be able to use that as much as you can. But at the same time, I'm sure, they didn't really build a long-term plan around hitting a homer on the seventh round running back. So really, really excited to see Pacheco get out there and hit some guys and continue to take a step forward. He was on NFL Network doing a kind of just a check in with him about how he was feeling. And you could just feel the energy. I mean, I'm sure you could always, for his whole life, probably feel the energy if he's doing an interview, but
100%.
You could tell that he was fired up about being the Chiefs, a player on the Chiefs, like just very positive, and love that dude.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a big takeaway from this first episode of the franchise. Just the young core of the team, the last draft class, coming in as rookies, winning the Super Bowl, but just how fired up they feel. And that's maybe a good little transition to Sky Moore was sort of the star of this episode of the franchise. And I don't know, it just was we've talked about him. Obviously, we talked about him last week. We've been talking about him throughout the offseason. I don't want to fall headfirst for Sky Moore again, but I'm having a really hard time not falling for him because he's so likable, and it really, like, I'm buying into the narrative that this is a completely different offseason and vibe, and just his level of preparedness. And I don't know, the vibes are extremely positive, and I'm finding it very hard not to get sucked in.
It's really, it's perfect vibe season right now. And
it is.
I definitely felt I guess I felt a confidence in Sky and a connection with him after watching that little, I mean, it was a couple minutes, but that's the most really of Sky that I've consumed in a while. And the story about when he said, "Coach, I'm not really trying to go back out there for the AFC Championship punt return." And Greg Lewis goes, "Who else we got, Sky?" And Sky laughed as he was telling that story. That was just so relatable and such a a fun way of him talking about him being, a player talking about being uncomfortable in a big situation like that. You don't really get that a lot. No, you don't get guys saying like, I didn't want to go out there and be the man, because it's such an alpha dog world in sports. Right. And you always hear, like, I'm ready to step up and do whatever it takes to help my team and all that stuff. And Sky was honest. He was like, I muffed 3 of them this year. Like, I don't think I'm very good at returning punts. And then, but when, of course, his number was called, he delivered. And I do think that really endeared him to me, certainly. I've told you a couple times on this pod, like, I just didn't really feel it with Scott. Yeah, like sure. Going into the year, and like, I just, he hasn't done it on the field as far as being a receiver. He's had some moments.
But listen, Sky didn't feel it. I mean, he didn't feel it in the AFC Championship game, but he did it. And he succeeded in that situation. And I thought the other thing that was telling about, that interview with him was he basically said, like, even if I hadn't scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl, like, I could feel good about the fact that I helped my team win the AFC Championship game to get there. Mm-hmm. And I just think, like, I don't know, the mindset, the mentality just seems completely different. The fact that he did not feel prepared and confident to go out and return that kick, and then ended up getting it out to the 50. The Chiefs win that game, and then he goes on to catch a touchdown in the Super Bowl. I'm sure that does wonders for a guy's confidence.
I mean, how many more guys on the roster do you think are excited, are more excited than Sky to go out there this year? It can't be that many. Like, I know these guys are grinders and they all want to go out there and compete and stuff, but as far as springboarding from the previous year to go into the next year with more confidence. And, he also said in that interview, like, I was so ready for a clean slate. I was just ready for it. The first season was hard, like, that's just, if he hits the ground running, no one should be surprised this year, because he's shown that, he's ready.
This is going to be an awkward transition to Chris Jones.
Oh,
we don't need to spend a lot of time talking about this. I feel like we've been talking about it for years, even though it's been, 2 weeks that we've been really aggressively covering this story, but there's been no updates. He doesn't have a contract. He's still not with the team. He posted a cryptic Instagram today, which included the quote, all good things must come to an end. Frank Clark, Bronco, tweeted, "Let me go call
Bronco.
Chris and see how his day is going today." Starting to get a little triggered by the situation. The fact that a Broncos player and former Chief is now making light of the fact that our best defensive player is holding out is upsetting to me. I do not like it.
Did you see Broncos fans asking Frank to recruit Chris?
Oh my
Like,
God.
I mean,
No.
talk about just
But that would have made me even angry.
total nightmare scenario. I did like some comment I think I read on his Instagram, maybe was someone saying maybe the all good thing that's coming to an end is him not going to training camp because of training camp sucks, and maybe he's like, all right, I'm about to sign my contract, so summer break's over. But
right,
yeah, it's
back to school.
Yeah, right. It's annoying right now is all it is to me. It's not concerning. It's not really something that I don't think will happen. I still feel very confident about about the prospect of the Chiefs and Chris Jones coming to a long-term deal. Just again, kind of based on what both sides have said. That's what we've been talking about this whole time, is that up until the moment that he didn't show up to camp, I mean, both sides were as positive as could be about the relationship. It was so out of nowhere that he was even, considering this. And then I know he wants a big number. That was also reported by Diana Rossini earlier today. I mean, everyone said it. Nate Taylor said it, but yeah, the number he wants is big. And I get it. He's extremely important. And if anyone in defense is worth $30 million a year in the NFL, he's one of them. He's a monster. But we'll just see if the Chiefs can massage the cap and figure out a way, if Brant Tellis can work his magic, and if Brett can, make sure that the relationship stays positive. But yeah, let's get it done. Let's get it done.
Let's get it done. The Chiefs did make a signing, or excuse me, they worked a player out. A player that you're a little bit excited about. XFL's leading receiver from last year, Jacour Pearson.
The coolest part about him
is tell me about him, because I don't know anything about it.
He ran a 4.2840, which was I think his maybe official 4.28, right, which is like Olympic track level, like Tyreek Hill level. That is
extremely fast.
Extremely fast. And there's the one video that was tweeted out when it was announced that he was working out for the Chiefs was this hilarious crosser over the middle. He catches the ball. Two linebackers bounce into him. He pivots out, and then he loops around, definitely at like a Tyreek Hill touchdown, where he loops around and then just kind of, as he starts accelerating, all the other players they look like they're in slow motion. I mean, we've seen it on, 20 Tyreek Hill touchdowns throughout his career where it just looks like he's playing a different sport. And that's the first XFL highlight I saw of Jacour Pearson, and I was like, okay, let's see what he's got. And yeah, since he's a wide receiver, I should have mentioned that earlier. He is the leading receiver from the XFL last year. Yes, as a wide receiver. That's a big hill to climb in 2023 on the Chiefs roster. Not even necessarily at the top of the hill, but there's a lot of bodies in there. There are a lot of guys that we've talked about, guys that we really like, might not be able to crack the 53. So I don't think that this working out, if they do end up, getting him in there, I'm sure that they just want some extra bodies. Maybe with John Ross, retiring, they just kind of needed a couple other guys in there. They might want him for practice squad. Who knows? But a 4.2840 guy is definitely, if I'm going to get a guy late in the process, a guy that, isn't drafted or anything like that. I at least want one skill that pops. We've talked about that with draft prospects a lot. Just give me one elite skill, and 4.2840 is world elite. So could be fun.
So I popped 4.2840 into his relative athletic score because I think his official number was a
4.42, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So his relative athletic score overall, which just kind of ranks overall athleticism, we've used it all the time on the show, would be a 6.6. If you bump that 40 up to a 4.28, that becomes a 7.04 relative athletic score. And that's with a 0.3 percentile height score and a 15th percentile weight score. Right. So his size is very poor. But that 40 time would be 99th and a half percentile.
Sure, it would. Of course. It's one of the fastest 40 times in,
his official 20-yard split, was a 9.6 2.8, or excuse me, 96th percentile was a
Yes.
2.52.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
I mean, that's
Jim
the official score. Like, if this 4.28 is a legitimate real
Jim
number,
Haslett, who is a longtime NFL guy,
yes.
he was his head coach in the XFL. He is the one who clocked the 4.28. So I guess hand timed would be. It doesn't say it was hand timed. It just says Jim Haslett clocked him at it. So, you know,
I mean, still
4.42 is fast. I mean, he's still a speedster, obviously, but could be fun.
and
He is 5'8",
yeah,
159,
buck
180.
78. Yeah,
Yeah.
buck 78.
Yeah.
So, his short shuttle, by the way, is 3.94. That's 99th percentile, also
That's
98.9.
pretty
We'll
good.
round it up. So, like, a
Explosive.
guy with
Yeah.
a 99th percentile 40-20 yard split and shuttle, I mean, I don't care what size that guy is. Like, you could do something with that. He's maybe an interesting little stash. We'll see if he ends up on the team. Let's talk about camp news, and let's talk about another wide receiver that I know you're always fired up to talk about, and now everybody's fired up to talk about it. I mean, like, we went from, I feel like when Justin Ross signed as an undrafted free agent, it was kind of a bit, because obviously the fact that he went undrafted with his pedigree, everybody assumed that the guy's health was fucked and he was never going to play football again.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason he signed as an undrafted free agent. He obviously missed the entire season last year with another injury. And so I feel like, you know, to the wider world, this whole Justin Ross thing was like a meme for Chiefs fans that, are just being obnoxious football fans that don't actually know ball. Like, Justin Ross probably isn't going to make the team, and he's probably never going to do anything. And then, okay, first day of camp opens, he's getting reps with the ones. All right, cute, whatever. Let the Justin Ross hype train memes continue. We're past it now. I mean, we're into every single day the social highlights are Justin Ross. The clips from outlets like KCSN, who are doing great work getting us video from camp, are Justin Ross. And now you're having, national writers, guys like Ted Wynn and Brett Coleman, and,
Dan
these
Orlovsky had
national,
something on him
Dan
earlier.
Orlovsky, these national film guys are looking at these clips and saying, like, oh, yeah, this Nate Tice had one the other day. I
Yes.
mean, these guys are watching these camp highlights and thinking, like, oh, yeah, this is the guy we saw at Clemson as a true freshman, be the best wide receiver on a team that was loaded with wide receivers. I mean, like,
Including T. Higgins. Yeah.
Higgins was basically his backup in
Yeah.
college.
Sure. And will be once again. Yeah. He's fun. He's the type of guy that I thought when he came out and when the Chiefs picked him up and I was kind of doing my homework on him and stuff, like, you could see, I think the 3-year UDFA deal that they signed right off the gate, like, told me that they at least believed it, regardless of if it was going to work, that this was not a bit for the Chiefs, certainly, that they saw the talent and they knew the injury and they knew that it was going to take more than a year. And then we had the catch in shorts last offseason where it was on the sideline and it was, just really, I think it was maybe one hand, if I remember right. And, that kind of like showed people like, all right, at least the dude can still catch a football. And then they IR. And then everyone mostly in the kingdom just kind of stashed him or forgot about him in general, but not me and not certain people that still, picked him up in our dynasty fantasy leagues and was still kind of thinking like, okay, like Justin Ross someday could be something. And then this year, it's been the chemistry with Pat, to me, has been the biggest like eye opener. Like the plays, I am not one that falls for training camp plays. I know a lot of people are. I know they're fun to see the guys playing football again, but like the number of times I saw John Baldwin catch a ball in training camp, like it doesn't always work. It doesn't always translate to the regular season, but what does translate is chemistry. That's something that if a quarterback feels good with a guy in camp, then when the bullets are flying in the regular season and he's got to get rid of that ball, like that chemistry translates, that matters. And that's something that Pat's talked about even before camp began, about feeling good about Ross when they were, just kind of talking about the upcoming season. And then clearly he's been heavily targeted by Pat. Like a lot of these catches, some of them have been, the backups or whatever. But a lot of these plays are like plays with the ones, like Pat to Ross, and that's what I'm most excited for, is just to see him getting in work with the best quarterback of all time. And of course, Patrick's going to make Justin Ross and everybody else he throws the ball to look pretty damn good. I mean, that helps the hype immensely when, it's not Russell Wilson throwing you the ball, it's Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's going to work out. So let the hype train commence. I was checking my timeline. My first like Justin Ross all pro tweet was May of 2022. So I will be framing that when it actually happens. So let the games begin.
Do you think that's now a retroactive X? Because it was a tweet when you tweeted it, but now is it an X now? Like, do we?
I think we're gonna need to extricate X from your brain and just you're hyper focused on the meme here. And
I haven't used X. I haven't used it in every situation yet. I still have more. I know.
I just think that it still throws me off when you say it. You're the only one I talk to that hilariously works it into casual conversation. You just go, "Oh, I'm going to go X that." And like, no one actually says it. I know you're saying it as a bit, but it still throws me off, and I love it and I hate it at the same time.
Oh boy. Talking about getting thrown off. Let's talk about camp news again. Boy, Travis Kelce was absolutely heated the first 2 days of camp. He threw punches at teammates on consecutive days. This is 34-year-old Travis Kelce. I mean, this is veteran Travis Kelce here. The second day was linebacker Jack Cochran. Travis catches a touchdown in the end zone. Jack comes in after the whistle, tries to knock the ball out, and Travis just turns around and throws a punch straight into the helmet. Fortunately, he was wearing one of those goofy padded on the outside helmets, and no damage. But it happens every year. Andy Reid's addressed it. He said, "I don't get it. Like, fighting's not productive, but also essentially boys will be boys, and like there are going to be a
lot of testosterone out there.
There are going to be fights, and I mean they're in St. Joe. Like it is designed to be a disgustingly. I'm not nothing against the city." Let me add the Lee here. I mean, a disgustingly difficult environment to train in with the heat and the humidity. It's August. It's outdoors in the Midwest. It is a harsh, difficult environment in which to train. I'm sure Travis was feeling it, but listen, I get it. And maybe Jack could cool it a little bit and not come in after the whistle. But Travis did have the opportunity to deck another teammate yesterday and did not. He had somebody knock the ball out. Yeah, he had somebody knock the ball out late, and he held back. So I guess camp is working.
Yeah, I saw Dante Hall, X Factor, on Good Morning Football. He was their guest for a couple of days, which had some pretty good segments in there. And they asked him about the fight. And I mean, he basically laughed and said, if this were anybody out there other than Travis Kelce, you and I wouldn't even have known a punch was thrown. Like,
yeah, that's true.
There's so much hyper focus on the superstars, on the guys that, go make the big plays on Sundays.
Good point.
But, I mean, he just said, like, look, this happens all across the league. Every camp is going to have some. There was I think a Browns scuffle that day, the same day that Travis threw the fist. And it's just kind of, it's not a big deal, but it's kind of interesting, I guess, just from like, oh, like Travis is still getting after it at his age. I think that's what I took away. It wasn't even like, I'm worried that Travis is pissed or fighting or whatever. It's just like, man, that dude he's in his millionth camp and he's still out there catching balls. And when guys hit him late, he's like ready to go. Like he's a warrior. And I think he and Jack Cochran and everyone else that he's scuffled with are all going to be best buds here in a couple weeks when the season starts.
Yeah, we got to cut him some slack. I did see more than one person point out that, he shot his shot with Taylor Swift and shot him down. So, I get that, he's maybe going through some things right now. Did you see Siciliano ask him about that today?
I did. It was a good little bit. I do think that
He did not want to talk about that, which I
He
thought
didn't.
was
No.
hilarious.
And
Like
when he talked about it on New Heights, when he originally told the story about the friendship bracelet and Taylor Swift, it was that he tried to meet her after the show and she wasn't meeting people. It wasn't even like he went up to her and said hi and tried to go out with, and she was like not interested. Like they just didn't connect. But everyone's taking it as like he got dumped by her, and like her next album's gonna all be about Travis Kelce or something. Like it's just,
I
I don't
mean,
know.
she is an Eagles fan, so
She is an Eagles fan. She
you
is.
know,
That's true.
I mean, it's
If that
that
goes anything like Catching Kelsey did, and he asks her about football, and then he goes, "Oh, that's cool. I hate them." that Broncos girl bit is some of my favorite. One of
yeah,
my favorite
March
Travis.
Schlereth's daughter.
That's right. That's right.
Listen,
I forgot
yeah,
that's who it was.
yeah, bro. Listen, I think I've made this plea before, and if anybody in the world would be able to acquire this, it would be you. You are
Catching
very
Kelsey.
good at acquiring
Ugh.
pieces of media.
Sailing the high
That's
seas of the internet.
that's all we have to say about that. But
Uh-huh.
I will make this plea publicly. If any person listening to this podcast can get us a copy of Catching Kelsey, we would be forever in your debt. I
Dude,
would
yes. Yes.
love to do it as a piece of off-season content, just like the piece of off-season content we're about to do. I think it would bang, and I would absolutely love to do it. If you have the ability somehow to get that and get it to us, please do it. Let's do
DM
our
me.
other piece of awesome. What's that?
I said DM me, like literally
Yes.
anyone on Twitter. If you find a torrent of it, if you find like whatever you can get Catching Kelsey that you can share with us.
If you have access to the vault at Peacock or whatever owns the rights to it now,
yes.
I mean, we could probably make it worth your while. Is all I'm saying.
We could.
Let's talk about our current piece of off-season content, Ask Blast from the Past. For those of you who have not been following along, we are recapping and exploring the 2003 Kansas City Chiefs season. So last week, the Chiefs were 11-1 after beating the Chargers. And then we played another AFC West team, and now we're 11-2. And we are on to Detroit to take on the Lions at Arrowhead in week 14. So, listen,
this is actually week 15 with the bye.
Oh my God.
I know. It's hard. It's hard.
You know what? It's training camp for us too. And in fact, this reminds me, I actually don't. I plugged the Rustin interview, and then I don't think I actually even mentioned what we're going to do the rest of the show. But here it is. This is the segment that we're doing. It's Ask Blast from the Past. We're all caught up here. Do you have any specific memories about this game? Because obviously, I mean, the 2003 Detroit Lions were a pit of despair. I mean, they came into this game 4-9, and that's like one of the better records that the Detroit Lions would have this millennium.
Their two previous years in 02 and 01, they were 3-13 and 2-14.
So there you go. They already had 4 wins in week 15. I mean, this was gangbusters.
They were on fire.
I mean, this was one of their best seasons. I mean, it's crazy. But do you have any memories about this game at all, or is this one that just kind of blends into the old background because it featured the Detroit Lions?
No, I remember the game. I remember spoiler alert, destroying them, but I really remember the novelty of the Detroit Lions. So the other thing about when in 03, we're 2 years into division realignment, which means that the chance to play every team in the NFL since 02, when they realigned, went up significantly. You really don't have matchups that don't happen that often now these days because of just the way that you play. You rotate which divisions you're playing and all that stuff. But in 03, there was just we were only 2 years into that, which means that Chiefs versus Lions was not something that happened very often. The previous time was 99, so 4 years ago, and then 96 and 90. So in my life, I really didn't watch the 91, but this was the third time in watching like probably, 10 years of football that I've seen the Chiefs play the Lions. So it was kind of, and just for reference, they've played 4 times since 03. But I remember just kind of, the Chiefs also were a snake-bitten franchise. They hadn't won in the playoffs. Yes, they had the great run in the 90s, but even though we didn't have success, there were certain teams that we could still look down on, even with our one Super Bowl and even with
Sure, and
no playoff,
our long
you know,
playoff drought, right?
exactly. It's still the team that's never and currently still has never 20 years later even been to a Super Bowl. And, I mean, the Lions are one of the most just putrid existences of a sports franchise of all time because they've been around since freaking BC era and still haven't been to a Super Bowl. It's preposterous. So there was that sense of like lording over them.
I saw an X the other day, that, and I'm checking this right now to make sure that I don't get these facts wrong. Okay, so John F. Kennedy, former president of the United States.
I'm familiar.
I don't know if you saw. Did you see this X? Because if you saw it, then
no, I just meant I'm familiar with John F. Kennedy.
No, I get it. But do you know the X I'm talking about? You probably know. Okay, good, good. So John F. Kennedy, you may recall, famously was assassinated, and that took place in 1963. Do you know how many playoff wins John F. Kennedy has missed since getting his brains blown out?
No, just the one
in the
late 80s or early 90s.
Yeah, 1992. He's missed one Lions playoff win. Guy got shot in 1963. They've won one. They've won one playoff game.
My parents were 6.
and by the way, they've only been to the playoffs 3 times since 2003. So it's not like in 2003. It's not like they were going every year. I mean, they did go. So they did go 6 times in the 90s. And they won one playoff game. Funny. I mean, they went 1-6 in the playoffs in the 90s. They had a nice little, this was a going on 4-year playoff drought in 2003. They would not make the playoffs again until 2011. So, this is a moribund franchise in a moribund stretch, even by their standards. And we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this game because it completely reflected. Yeah, exactly. It completely reflected that Joey Harrington started this game for the Lions. He had a 68.9 quarterback rating. Not good, but for Joey Harrington, about par for the course. Because you know what his career quarterback rating was?
No, but I'm guessing right around there.
69.4.
Very nice. Good job.
This was literally an average performance for Joey Harrington. And not great.
This game was also really cold, if I remember. And in fact, I can remember because I can go do temperature 29 degrees. 29 degrees. So, it was December 14th. You're at Arrowhead. You've got the Chiefs, looking ahead to the playoffs. I absolutely trying to keep pace with the AFC and trying to, make sure that this season that's been so magical and so dominant at times, keeps the momentum going and all that. And we can just kind of go over some of the big numbers. First of all, we don't really need to do a drive-by-drive in this because it was an ass kicking, and the Chiefs scored
ass kicking
touchdowns on their first 4 possessions. So they went 80 yards touchdown, 50 yards touchdown, 65 touchdown, and 70 touchdown in their first 4. And the Lions on their first 4 went punt, pick, punt, field goal. So 28-3 start, certainly not a surprise given kind of what we just set up about, where these franchises were at and where the rosters were at. And we got to talk about the passing game, right? Passing game was unbelievable in this.
Yeah, absolutely. This was the Trent Green show. This was the best game of Trent Green's career, and that's saying quite a bit. He had a good career in Kansas City. This was his best season. 20 of 25 for 341 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. No sacks. That's a perfect quarterback rating. That's 158.3. That's pretty good. It's very good. In fact, as good as you possibly can do. Pretty good.
He had 3 career games over 150 quarterback rating, and this was the only one that reached the perfect milestone. This was the only one that he 20 of 25 he was just Dyson. He just did whatever he
20 of
absolutely wanted.
25, 341 yards on 25 pass attempts is
Yeah.
bananas.
13 yards per attempt. I mean, 13.6, almost 14. Like, yeah, he certainly was dialed in and was doing whatever he wanted. But really, more than him, you know, you had one of Tony Gonzalez's best games as in 2003, certainly as a Chief. 6 catches, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns. You had what's really funny in this is Priest Holmes ran really, really well, which of course, you know, pass game and run game could complement each other really well. But Priest ran 18 times for 94 yards and 3 touchdowns and also caught 5 balls for 42 yards. So like they were just clicking, and the line was dominant. Trent Green was not sacked in this game, and probably not even, if I remember right, not even really close to it. Just the pissed off Chiefs that you love to see from 2003.
So the Chiefs had 521 total yards of offense in this game on 62 plays.
That's nothing.
That is a preposterous. It's over 8 yards a play. That's utterly absurd. Over 8 yards a play. Over 8 yards a play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's outrageous. It's unbelievable.
I was looking at the longs on the receiving. Priest Holmes long of 12, Eddie Kennison long of 18, and then Johnny Morton long of 14, so all over 10. But then Tony G long of 32, and Dante Hall long of 38, and Derek Blaylock long of 63. So they clearly, you know, away. They went over 10 plus yards at least to, you know, 6 different receivers there. And I mean, clearly just the Lions were outmatched from the start of this thing. As you pointed out, Jason Hanson probably not equipped to go toe-to-toe with the monstrous 0-3 Chiefs in Arrowhead in December. I mean, he was never going to win that game, but didn't even really compete.
Let's do awards. I mean, I don't think we have anything else to say about this game. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our awards segment, usually we give out an award for the 5-star man who, through his play, says, I'm a 5-star man. We have the trash man who is eating garbage all over the field. And we have the wild card who's capable of anything. We are going to do an unprecedented award show today in that we are awarding not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 5-star men, a total of 25 stars that we're passing out, allocating to the Chiefs. And I'll nominate, you know, the obvious choice here. It's Trent Green, 158.3 quarterback rating. That was only the second time in franchise history that a quarterback had posted a perfect passer rating of 158.3. Len Dawson did it against the Broncos back in 63.
Yep.
In the first game in AFL history with the perfect passer rating. So Len Dawson setting history against the Broncos. The Chiefs won that game, I think 62-7 or something like that. It was absurd. The Chiefs utterly dominated the Broncos to a degree that they didn't again until Patrick Mahomes became the quarterback in the 70s. So, you know, time is a flat circle, and the Chiefs dominating the Broncos. It's something that happens. Trent Green, though, in this game, 158.3 quarterback rating. Alex Smith would go on to do it against the Raiders and the famous Jamal Charles 5-touchdown game where he was just taking every screen to the house. But I mean, this was not just dink and dunk all over the field. I mean, 341 yards again on 25 pass attempts is just, it's absurd. He was a monster in this game. He didn't take a sack. I mean, this is the best game of his career, hands down. 5-star man.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Trent did everything that you could possibly want your quarterback to do and put up video game like numbers, and even threw in a 14-yard rush for old Trent, who never ran very much. So just clearly was in his bag that day, and everything he did worked. And they even got to work Todd Collins into the game late, even after. I thought this was funny. So the final score, the final score is at the end of the third quarter with a minute left when the final 45-17 happened. I saw that and thought it was the end of the fourth, and the Chiefs were throwing up 38-17 and was surprised. But no, that was just the end of the third. So Trent, completely agreed. 5-star man there. I'll pick a guy that is no stranger to our 5-star man list, a guy that was his every bit of his dominant self that we've gone over pretty much every week in the Ask Blast. And that is, of course, Priest Holmes. Priest Holmes 18 rushes for 94 yards. So he was running at 5.2 yards a clip in this game. So it's not even like, they're 8 yards per play on offense. It's not like that was all passing. Like Priest was running the ball effectively too, even caught all 5 of his targets for 42 yards. So, I mean, looking at 136 yards of offense and 3 scores on the ground. So just
great.
Again, just the Chiefs just took the Lions to the woodshed in Arrowhead. I'm sure the crowd loved every second of it on that cold December day. Priest Holmes, you are a 5-star man.
Tony Gonzalez, come on down. 6 receptions, 93 yards, 2 tutties. I mean, again, this is it's an ass whooping on every level. You mentioned the 32-yard long in this game. I mean, he just was going up and getting balls all over the field. They couldn't cover him. They couldn't stop him. No. Tony Gonzalez, the third 5-star man of the day. Who you got for number 4?
So number 4 is going to be backup running back Derek Blaylock. Blaylock had some nice plays in this season. Certainly, he was an explosive player and a guy that, obviously didn't get a ton of run with Priest Holmes as the number 1, but when he caught the ball out of
the number 2,
and Larry Johnson, absolutely. But Blaylock got more run this year than Larry Johnson did, certainly. Sure. And when he was out of the backfield in this game, he was catching passes. He was targeted 5 times, just like Priest was. He also caught all 5 of his passes because everyone caught everything in this game. But he housed a 63-yarder, so he got over 100 yards receiving on the day with that 63-yard score. And I mean, certainly, a highlight of Derek Blaylock's career and a 5-star performance for the running back.
We got one final 5-star performer, and I think this might be the first time that we have had Mr. Al Saunders, offense coordinator,
come on
as
down.
A 5-star man. I mean, listen, this was the third 40 burger the Chiefs put up this season.
The
3rd or 4th.
5th.
Oh my God. 5?
The 5th. That's right.
Well, we probably should have had Al on at some point just as a season achievement award. But
yeah,
I can think of no better time to allocate him his first 5-star man of the year than after a 45-17 performance where, I mean, we just named 4 other guys on the offense that were 5-star men. This was a monstrous performance by the Chiefs offense. Al Saunders, your 5-star man. We'll be back next week. It's always sunny in Chiefs Kingdom.